Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
Who are the elders of the learned protocols of Zion? This is a secret which has not been revealed. They are the hidden hand. Not they are not the board of deputies that the Jewish parliament in England or the Universal Israelite Alliance, which sits in Paris, but the late Walter Rathenau of the Allegeminger Electricates Gesellschaft has thrown a little light on the subject, and doubtless he was in possession of their names, being in all likelihood one of the chief leaders himself. Writing in the Wiener Free Press, December 24th, 1912, he said that 300 men, each of whom knows all the others, govern the fate of the European continent, and they elect their successors from their entourage. In the year 1844, on the eve of the Jewish Revolution of 1848, Benjamin Disraeli, whose real name was Israel and who was a damped or baptized Jew, published his novel Koningsby, in which occurs this ominous passage. The world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. And he went on to show that these personages were all Jews. Now that Providence has brought to light of day these secret protocols, all men may clearly see the hidden personages specified by Disraeli at work behind the scenes of all the governments of the world. This revelation entails on all people the grave responsibility of examining and revising upon their attitude towards the race and nation which boasts of its survival over all empires. That being said, let me just say that the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, which Justin and I will be going into and reading passage by passage and chapter by chapter, has been a highly contentious and controversial manuscript, and one that you can, when just Google searching it, the first 100 hits or so are out to discredit and to prove them as being a hoax. And we're not going to contend one way or the other as far as, if they are, if they aren't, or, because there's a lot of disinformation out there. We're simply going to read them and share them with you. And the book that we put together, the Illuminati Secret Covenant and Protocols, has been just to provide you with the ability to read them for yourselves and to decide whether they have any relevance to the situation of the world and the lives that we all live, even in this modern age, and how, like the Orwellian uh, manuscripts like The Brave New World and 1984 and others seem to have been prophetic in nature in that they reveal ahead of time how society um, is controlled by a mechanism, the matrix of delusion and control, which leads the masses astray in great quantity. And so we're just going to share this information with you. And again, we're not in any manner against the Jews as a people or as a nation. I do believe that there is, as Christ himself spoke about and revealed within the scriptures, that there is a portion of those who say they are Jews but are not, meaning that they are parading and acting as if they are Jews, maybe even to lay um, the point of blame upon the Jewish people as a whole, because the Israelites, the Hebrew people, were called out and chosen by the Most High to be the people of prophecy. And so the synagogue of Satan, as is spoken about in scripture, which I believe is directly associated and linked with the line of Cain, that they are the hidden hand, the Oz behind the mask that has been working behind the scenes over time and in history to bring forth what is the agenda of the New World Order. And that this involves bringing to power and bringing to light who they believe to be the Messiah of the Talmudic Jews, and those that are not Torah observant, that deny Christ as Messiah, Savior, and the fulfillment of the prophecies that their patriarchs and elders and prophets had forecast, especially um, the Old Testament prophets. Um, the call for uh, Emmanuel, God with us, and um, there's just so many, over 300 prophecies that were fulfilled by his coming. But anyways, let me give Justin a chance to comment and share whatever he might like to about this, these manuscripts, and then we'll move forth and start reading them and sharing them, and see how it goes. Justin, are you there, son?
Yep, I am here. Welcome, everybody. Great to be back with you all. Prayerfully enjoyed the Revelation study. This will begin our new study through the book, The Illuminati Secret Covenant, and it's one that has been highly anticipated because this was the text that you and Rob had spoken about going into after y'all were done
Right.
with Genesis. So this is long overdue, but I do want to touch on a couple things that you had mentioned. This text, a lot of it is from the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. A lot of this text has been claimed conspiracy, thrown out as a, fake and made up. But when you read it, it will speak for itself. You'll see the things that it talks about are definitely going on in the world. And they're things that most people really would just turn a blind eye to. But when you read that it's actually part of an agenda, I feel like it should, if you're not already, woken up from the Matrix, it should red pill you a little bit, at least. But I did want to also mention, like my dad said, these are called the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. As my dad said, we're not against all people who say they are Jews. That gets into an entirely different topic, of course, because Jews were only from the tribe of Judah mixed in with some of the Levites and Benjamin that was left over there in Judea. But when you talk about Israel itself as the people who kept the order of Melchizedek, the people that kept the Aaronic priesthood and kept the prophecies of the Messiah and who the Messiah did come through, they were a chosen people. And they still are. Some of them are a chosen people. But if we go over and we read from Romans 11, we read about how the Gentile nations, through faith, are grafted in to this olive tree, which was Israel. That was that's the saved and chosen tree through which the Creator himself operates on the earth through. But there are people that were broken off because of their unbelief. All right, so because of unbelief, and this is in Romans 11:20, because of unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by faith. All right, I don't want to get too into the whole chapter because basically talking about how the Gentiles were grafted in, were standing and being haughty against the Israelites or the Jewish people that were there, that turned to faith in the Messiah. And they're basically saying, there are arguments between the two, and we still see the same thing. The arguments between those who follow the gospel of circumcision that was given to Peter and those who follow the gospel of uncircumcision that was given to Paul. And we still see a division today, and one is more haughty than the other. But the point is, what you see is spoken of in Ephesians 3. I believe it was in Ephesians 3. Maybe I was wrong. Oh, Galatians 3. Sorry about that. Let me pull Galatians 3 up. And it says, "For as many of you as have been baptized into Christ have put on Christ." Right? "For you are all the children of God by faith in Christ Yahushua and the Messiah. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female even. For you are all one in Christ Yahushua and the Messiah, Jesus." And this is the important part here. "And if you be Christ's," or the Messiah's, "then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise." So, when we're talking about the chosen bloodline, the chosen bloodline has been dispersed. And now it's not so much a physical bloodline as it is a spiritual bloodline, the spiritual kingdom of the Creator. And, even if you are of what used to be an enemy seed, now you can be, through faith in the Messiah, in his testimony, his life, his death, and his resurrection, you become Abraham's seed. And what does that mean? You're not like physically Abraham's seed, but you're heirs according to the promise that was given to Abraham of the eternal kingdom that would be set up in Israel when the kingdom of the New World Order would be destroyed. But I digress, because I do want to go back and talk about actual bloodlines, because as my dad talks about quite often, and as many of you probably know, there is a division between bloodlines, between families and the elitist families. And when you see that name, the learned elders of Zion, Zion is Israel. That's the Temple Mount. Zion, they proclaim to be, as my dad said, the chosen race, the chosen people. And as we read in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9, it is a synagogue of Satan, those who say that they are Jews but are not. They claim to be Jews, but they are not. They are the synagogue of Satan. So where did these people that call themselves Zionists, where do they really come from? I want to go back over here into Joshua 9. Joshua is a very, very old book. Comes right after the Pentateuch, and this was about the conquest of the Israelites after the Exodus, when they were going into the Promised Land. And when they were doing so, they were told to destroy all the inhabitants of Canaan, all the children of Canaan, which were many giants and very evil. They carried forth the ways of Cain and of Ham. But I want to read here. "Now when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, they worked craftily and went and pretended to be ambassadors. And they took old sacks on their donkeys, old wineskins, torn and mended, old and patched sandals on their feet and old garments on themselves, and all the bread of their provision was dry and moldy. And they went to Joshua to the camp at Gilgal, and said to him and to the men of Israel, We have come from a far country. Now therefore make a covenant with us. And the men of Israel said to the Hivites, Perhaps you dwell among us, so how can we make a covenant with you? But they said to Joshua, We are your servants. And Joshua said to them, Who are you? Where do you come from? They said to him, From a very far country your servants have come, because of the name of Yahuwah your Elohim, the Lord your God. For we have heard of his fame, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites, who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon, king of Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, who was at Ashtaroth. Therefore our elders and all the inhabitants of our country spoke to us, saying, Take provisions with you for the journey, and go to meet them, and say to them, We are your servants. Now therefore make a covenant with us. This bread of ours we took hot for our provision from our houses on the day we departed to come to you. But now look, it is dry and moldy. And these wineskins which we were filled were new. And see, they are torn, and these our garments and our sandals have become old because of the very long journey. Then the men of Israel took some of their provisions, but they did not ask counsel of Yahuwah. So Joshua made peace with them and made a covenant with them to let them live, and the rulers of the congregation swore to them. And it happened at the end of 3 days after they had made a covenant with them that they heard that they were their neighbors who dwelt near them. Then the children of Israel journeyed and came to their cities on the third day. Now their cities were Gibeon, Kephirah, Beeroth, and Kirjath Jearim. But the children of Israel did not attack them, because the rulers of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord God of Israel, by Yahuwah, Elohim. And all the congregation complained against the rulers. Then the ruler said to the congregation, We have sworn to them by Yahuwah Elohim, the Lord God of Israel. Now therefore we may not touch them. This we will do to them. We will let them live, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath which we swore to them. And the ruler said to them, Let them live, but let them be woodcutters and water carriers for all the congregation, as the rulers had promised them. I want to go down and show this is very important. At the very end it says, And that day Joshua, who was the high priest in Israel, made them woodcutters and water carriers for the congregation and for the altar of Yahuwah, in the place which he would choose, even to this day, when this was being written down and finally recorded. So you see that these people, which were Canaanites, descendants of Ham, which we believe were descendants of Cain through one of Noah's wives, Naamah, which came from before the flood. So you see this bloodline, and if you look back at exactly what the Freemasons, have their allegiance to, it's the Temple of Solomon. And the Temple of Solomon hadn't yet been made, but I would bet that even when the temple was made, that those servants were still part of the temple service, still part of fetching the wood and the water for the altar after the temple was made. So you see that they had a role in the priesthood. And I would dare to go as far as to say that they did intermarry even with some of the priests. As we read in the apocryphal text of Ezra, we know that the priest did marry into the Gentile nations, into even some of the Canaanite nations. So, some of these people would even be in the priesthood, and they were of an evil seed, and there is an evil seed today. Not saying that they couldn't be saved if they had been grafted in, through faith. But there is a people out there who have a covenant together that they want to not be saved. They want to destroy everyone else and have them lose the possibility of their salvation. And so what we're going to be reading through in the Illuminati Secret Covenant with the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion is going to show you exactly how they operate in this day. And they came from being woodcutters and water carriers. As they said, they were servants to Joshua and to Israel. But now we see that they're no longer servants. They've actually established an entire church, an entire religion that's known to us as the synagogue of Satan. Not known to the world as that. To the world, they might be legitimate and real believers. And like my dad said earlier, it's very well that the Antichrist or the false Messiah could appear through that religion, and that whole operation could unfold through their direction.
Yes, very important. And I'm glad that you brought all of that up as well. And it's important to understand the roots of how it was that they were appointed by Joshua. And it's very critical that, it says there without the counsel of the Most High, that because they didn't take it to him, this deception invaded even their numbers, and it eventually led to the usurpation of the true Levitical priesthood, and to the point that during the time and the life of Messiah, when he incarnated into flesh form and dwelt here amongst humanity, they were the ones that were behind a conspiracy to murder him. And this also would be a fulfillment of prophecy that he would shed his blood, that he would be the Passover lamb, but that, they declared, let his blood be upon us. And so, all of this, as far as the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, and how he would crush the serpent's head as it would nip at his heel. All of these are things that we've spoken about and talked about, and how they were fulfilled by his death on the cross, and also by even the actions of David in taking the head of Goliath many centuries prior, that all of it led to the fulfillment of when he had died on the cross, that this was at the place of Golgotha, the Goliath of Gath, at the hill of Calvary, which means skull. And so this area was well known to be associated with Goliath, and him being a giant, a Philistine champion, that he was a seed of the fallen angels, the serpent seed. And just one other connection in the New Testament, in both the books of Matthew and Luke, we see that these priests, after their usurpation of the legitimate priesthood, and how they became the rabbis that were under and writing the Talmudic law, and that controlled the synagogues through the oral law, um, that this was made to be much more valuable, and even trumped the study of Torah. And Christ said of them that the blood of all the prophets, which was shed from the foundation of the world, may be required of this generation, from the blood of Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, which perished between the altar and the temple. Verily I say unto you, it shall be required of this generation. Woe unto you, lawyers, for ye have taken away the key of knowledge. Ye entered not in yourselves, and them that were entering in ye hindered. And so they were the assassins of the prophets. They were the ones that had killed the prophets from the time of Abel, which of course we know that it was Cain, and being the half brother of Abel, that murdered him, kicking off the war between and the enmity between these bloodlines. And that they are synagogue of Satan, as we spoke about, and that they covertly have, even since this time, been controlling things from the top down. They have been Caesars and popes um, and prime ministers and presidents and all of those that sit on the thrones of the world today. And many, studying and looking into the bloodlines that sit on and rule, that even in during the World War I, World War II, that this was a family and a bloodline war. All right, we'll be right back.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
This book is one of those that comes from the discourse of the Ante-Nicene Church Fathers, and it was over, of course, what to include within the canon and what to authorize as the books that the church okay for public dissemination, and it was, of course, excluded. And yet, like the book of Acts, it covers much information between what was a representative of Satan, Simon the Magus, and Peter, as he went through his travels all throughout the land. And they kept coming and butting heads with one another, and Simon kept leading astray the people. And he had really actually a lot of good questions that helped in the dialogue of the text, and the information that is brought forth within this book can help people to understand not only the times and what the apostles were going through, but also it speaks about the fallen angels in great detail, the origins of evil, even the giants and how they came to be within the world, which is part of that whole theme of Genesis 6, the sons of God mating with the daughters of man, creating a race of giants, how they were here before and after the flood, which is one of those esoteric subjects that many of us have now begun to investigate in great detail. And so this, like the book of Enoch, speaks about that and covers it and shares the information about how these fallen angels are not gods, even though they are and have been celebrated by cultures and civilizations as holding this co-omnipotence with the Most High. But they are created angelic beings, and being cast out, they have always now become what we refer to as legion, and what Paul refers to as the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. And so there's great clarity brought out within the discourses of this book. It also speaks about and confirms that the devil is the father of the bad seed, serpent seed, the feminine Holy Spirit, and how she is part of the pre-existent triune Godhead, which the Israelites worship and which most people still don't understand. All of those things are brought forth in this manuscript as well. And so it will help to give you perspective on much that most people have never read about.
The subject claimed that his extended family and their cousins, who are kings, queens, princes, and princesses, as well as leaders of industry and banking worldwide, believe they are children of an otherworldly race of humanoid beings. He'd been taught by his tutors that once upon a time, his ancestors had fallen to Earth after some cosmic calamity in the time before the garden. He believed that while their ancestral mother was Eve, that their ancestral father was not Adam, and he was torn to know if a child of Cain was actually genetically different and whether he could be saved. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are going to be moving into these particular teachings, and remember that we don't claim one way or the other as to their being inspired. But certainly they are of interest, especially to this time and this age, and with current events and what we find ourselves um, at as a world. And so, um, Justin.
Shall we get into the text?
That's it.
Did you want to begin with the introduction? Did you write this introduction?
I did.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you read through that and pick up from there?
All right, sounds good. All right, let me go up a little bit. Yeah, and I think this is relevant too. All right, this is from the introduction to the Secret Covenant and the Protocols. The 13 Illuminati bloodlines dominating the world today trace their origins from Cain and the garden through the flood to Ham and the Canaanites. They are the pretenders in Joshua 10 that connived the princes of Israel into sparing their people. Appointed bondservants to the Levite priesthood, they usurped their roles and by the time of Christ became the Pharisees which opposed and conspired the murder of Yahushua. This reason is why Christ said of them that being of their father their devil, their ancestors had been the murderers of the prophets from Abel to Zacharias. And I just read the quote um, from Luke. I guess I could read it here from Matthew too, just to give you the other side of it. It says, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because ye build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves, that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers, ye serpents, ye generation of vipers. How can ye escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall ye scourge in your synagogues and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias son of Barachias, whom you slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation." Over the centuries, they have successfully procured, accumulated, and centralized wealth by overemphasizing strategic marriage, controlled inheritance, and mass indoctrination of central banking. It is because they are careful only to intermarry with other elitist families that they have come to control the world's wealth and power. As a blood lineage connected directly to Satan, they print the money used by the world's central banks, which sustains private and government sector commerce and exchange. The lifeblood of the economy is the currency, fueling the transactions of all of the oil conglomerates, media groups, defense contractors, entertainment companies, food industry, pharmaceutical, and other groups which the people of the world depend upon for sustenance and survival. They own in mass the companies supporting the infrastructure of the quote unquote global economy. In the international affairs of and building up of nations, they have perfected and utilized as strategic method the loaning of massive sums of money to puppet dictators. This technique not only makes acceptable the leaders they have chosen to put in charge of these nations, but also straps their people with such huge amounts of debt that for gaining access to the money
Can I ask you
can
a
be
question
applied.
real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I guess I have an older version of the text. Do you
Uh,
know where you got this version, or can you email it to me so I can share with everyone?
yeah, I
Basically the
can.
same, but it's written differently.
Okay, yeah, I don't, yeah, I'll send it to you right after I read this part. But maybe yours is updated because there is this error right here.
Oh, okay.
But I'll continue reading.
I can pick up at the
For
end of this
gain.
paragraph if you want.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and pick up then? Yeah,
Okay.
because there is this,
It
weirdness.
says they utilize a strategy in nation building, a perfected method of loaning money to puppet dictators, trapping their people with the debt, and then using that debt to hire all of their transnational companies as means to create a commodities market, which they can then base the creation of a stock market to then centralize, manipulate, and steal the wealth of various citizens in all parts of the world. They print the money loaned to governments at interest through such institutions as the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and other international central banking mechanisms they have created and spread out all across the world for use in manipulating regional banking currencies. It is through globalization and monopolized so-called free trade that they continue to increase the centralization of their wealth, power, and influence. It is through these same systems that they continue to oppress the populations, control the masses, and destroy the wage-earning capacities of particular nations and regions. Anyone interested in learning more about the current Illuminati bloodlines ruling the world can look to the work of Fritz Springmeier and his book, The Bloodlines of the Illuminati. The Kenites, Canaanites, Ishmaelites, Edomites, and the fake Khazarian Jews, like those of the Rothschild family, are the Talmudic Zionists spoken about in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9, who say they are Jews but are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. They often work their evil under the guise of being Torah-observant Jews, but use misguided and deceptive tactics to direct or redirect blame to those that are truly the Lord God's chosen Hebraic peoples. One cannot blame one people group for all the ills of the world, since those that are instigating, propagating, and perpetuating the madness, chaos, death, destruction, rape, pillage, and plunder of the New World Order as a terrorist organization are made up of all races, colors, creeds, nations, and genders of people. Satan's church and an army of fanatics are comprised of every kind of person from every country without exclusion. Be wary when pointing the finger and vilifying or placing blame for the problems of the world upon one sect, race, group, ideology, or nationality, and generalizing terrorism. Those serving Satan and the rebel angels near the very top of the Illuminati pyramid structure, and who from the shadows support, nourish, and fund the terrorist boogeyman everywhere in the world, are the blood royal families from the line of Cain, who, sitting upon all the thrones of the world, occupy all the positions of power, and are orchestrating and tangent together the sinister agenda of the New World Order. Zen Garcia, November 11th, 2008.
Yes. Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit more that you had quoted. Maybe this was a quote from Steve Quayle. I'm not sure.
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
Okay, you want me to read that one too, or you want to do a little
Um.
discussion?
Well, I think people, and I just quoted a little bit from it at the top. When we entered in, so people know what we're talking about as far as the bloodline of Cain. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we can move on into the actual text.
Yeah, that's basically what we talked about, right? Do you want me to
Right.
skip this
Exactly.
part about his benefactor test subject believe?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
skip this part
Go into the
and
secret
go
covenant.
into the actual secret covenant.
Yes.
All right, very creepy picture that you put on there. Void of sleep, the New World Order.
Hmm.
All right, the secret covenant. An illusion it will be, so large, so vast, it will escape their perception. Those who will see it will be thought of as insane. I don't know. You really think that? That's everyone here, probably. Everyone thinks that you're
Tin full
insane.
hat,
Right.
right?
We will create separate fronts to prevent them from seeing the connection between us. Huh, that seems like red and blue, huh? We will
Right.
behave as if we are not connected to keep the illusion alive. Our goal will be accomplished one drop at a time so as to never bring suspicion upon ourselves. This will also prevent them from seeing the changes as they occur. We will always stand above the relative field of their experience, for we know the secrets of the Absolute. We will work together always and will remain bound by blood and secrecy. Death will come to he who speaks. And seems like they might be writing this about the Clintons. Don't want to get shut down though. No, that's
They
really
consider those people that serve them expendable too. So
right. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely like whistleblowers will get
right.
silenced. Anyone, I feel like, there's this tragedy, right? This tragic statistic that 22 veterans every day take their own lives.
Yeah,
And I've thought about this
horrible.
so many times. I knew some really kind and loving people, also some pretty angry people from the military that ended up taking their own lives. But I've questioned myself so many times, because I just feel like some of them at least never seemed like the type of people that would do that. But then they were involved in certain missions, that they couldn't talk about.
Right,
How many of these veterans do you think are just silenced? And
right. Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
got to be a
There's
proportion of them.
a most certainly, and the story of Pat Tillman is one that comes to mind. He was uh, a professional football player and had a
Yeah, he got
contract.
shot by friendly fire, right? What they said.
Yeah, twice in the head.
Yeah,
Yeah, friendly fire, right? Yeah,
accidentally.
and yeah, and the reason being is because he was going to start speaking about how you know it was totally unnecessary for them to be there in Afghanistan, and also he was part of the group that was hunting down Bin Laden, and they had basically had backed him into a corner, and then he was flown out and protected by the Pakistani ISI, and they, took him and his fighters to freedom and wouldn't allow special forces to come down on him. But, anyways, this was some of the things that he was going to speak out about, and of course, yeah, friendly fire. He was shot in the forehead, and his death and everything was covered up. But he was one of those that believed, and wanted to go fight for his nation and gave up his freedom and this very lucrative NFL contract to make millions of dollars to go and to fight for the supposed freedoms and values of his country, and he was silenced for it. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, that kind of thing happens all the time, I believe.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate, to us these are friends and brothers and sisters and sons and fathers, and just can't imagine that to them it's literally like you said, we're just expendable. We don't
Right.
matter, we don't have value. They're like so far detached from caring and from love, like it says in the scripture that the love of many would wax cold, right? But there's also been this operating elite who, for as long as has been, haven't had any love, right? Just
Right.
darkness that they operate
Yeah.
in. But it really made me interested. This one part, it says, "We'll always stand above the relative field of their experience, for we know the secrets of the absolute." And I always think, no matter how much we study, going to school, learning chemistry, things like that, you would think that they would hide all of that, like science, all that type of information. But the things that the elitists, that those who operate for the elitists, the things that they know is far more than you would
Right.
ever learn unless you were initiated in.
Right.
I'm not saying that they're all knowing or anything, but they have monopolized information for millennia. I mean, from the time that the fallen angels came down, who were the people
Right.
that were working with the fallen angels? It wasn't the
Right.
order of Melchizedek. It wasn't,
Right.
the royal priesthood or the true priesthood. It was
Right.
the Nephilim,
Yeah.
their children, the giants,
Yes.
the people who submitted themselves to the giants, who operated for them and worked for them, the people who
Right.
controlled Babel, Nimrod, people who controlled Egypt, people who controlled Greece, Rome. And where do you think they ended up now? You think they just gave up their thrones? No, they've maintained their thrones. They just kind of have this blanket of illusion, like we they don't operate anymore, like we have freedom, right? But
Uh-huh.
that they're the ones that set up all those gigantic buildings in all the downtown spaces, the ones that put up
Mm-hmm.
gold statues on top of their Capitol buildings. These are
Right.
people who have amassed wealth for thousands of years, not just people who
Yes.
got rich starting Facebook or something like that. Well, I'm not saying that they're
Right.
also
Right.
part of,
Yeah, they're
but
controlled in that same way.
I'm saying this is old money, old power.
Old money. Yes.
And
Right.
so when the fallen angels did come, when we read in the book of Enoch, they did teach a lot of different things to humans. And
Right.
we always think of today as like we're far superior to any technology we've ever had in the entire history of the world, right? But they've had the same knowledge and information. We look back, there was this 2,000-year-old Babylonian tablet that was discovered a few years back, probably over a decade now. But remember when it was first discovered, they found out that the Babylonians had a form of trigonometry, which trigonometry is like, the basis of calculus and engineering and creating machines and, doing things like that. And they had this form of trigonometry that was actually more accurate than the one that we use today. So really
Uh-huh.
interesting. I'm sure that the elitists didn't want that to be discovered, but it was. And they still have
Right.
those same knowledge, and like it says here, they're going to stand above the relative field of what we're able to learn in engineering and
Right.
in electrical engineering, and everything that we do, and masonry and architecture and everything. They have amassed that same thing about all knowledge as well. If we look back, there was this the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Everyone knows, right? Everyone's heard of the greatest library in all of history, the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. It was the largest collection of human knowledge, and it was burned down. Right?
Right.
Do you know what happened
Yes.
right before it burned down? There was a
What?
rival to the Library of Alexandria, and it was the Library of Pergamos. The Library of Pergamos, and whoever was in love with Cleopatra, I forget what his name was. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Julius Caesar.
Julius Caesar. Okay, I get all of their names all mixed up. Whatever the Caesar was at that time, but
Yeah.
he gifted the Library of Pergamon or Pergamos to Cleopatra, if I recall correctly. You can look up this story. Just look up the Library of Pergamos. This is actually the place where papyrus was invented in Pergamos, and they had what was probably even a more extensive library than Alexandria. So Julius gives this library to Cleopatra. They consolidate all of that information in the Library of Alexandria, and then it gets burned down, and all that
Burned
information
down.
is quote unquote lost. Kind of like everything that goes into the Smithsonian Museum is lost,
Right,
right?
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the Vatican Library,
Mm-hmm.
it's another one of those archives which they keep and hoard for themselves, and then they nothing comes forth for the masses. Just like all of the information that's part of the Dead Sea Scrolls collection as well.
Yeah.
We get all the broken up bits and scattered remnants, while they get the full Aramaic copies of the Book of Enoch,
Mm-hmm.
two full extent versions. They get those kind of things, and we get all the tidbits and fragments and
Yeah. Could
all
you
of that.
imagine? Could you imagine what the Book of Enoch? I mean, even the little bit that they released of Enoch is like, whoa!
Yeah,
Read
mind
that
blowing. But
again.
yes,
It
right, right.
straight talks about the fallen angels and the race of
Yes,
giants and the Nephilim. Yeah,
yes.
really
And then,
intense.
things uh, they hide in plain sight, truths which should be self evident, and then they laugh and mock and make fun of us for believing the delusions and the lies that they release to keep us in ignorance.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that every time we turn on Netflix or something. They're probably laughing
Right,
at us,
right.
right? Yeah. All right, so shall we continue? It
Yeah,
says
let's
we
do.
will keep their lifespan short and their minds weak while pretending to do the opposite. Huh. We will use our knowledge of science and technology in subtle ways so they will never see what is happening. I just got to say, like, the technology that's in cell phones, the technology that's in our computers is so crazy to me.
It totally is.
It is so. I mean, we're just looking at these little black boxes with. I have no idea how many little pixels of light of different colors of light, and if we have speakers, the speaker. I mean, you're not hearing my voice, right? You're just hearing some metal and magnets, and
Uh-huh.
you're just hearing a machine that's portraying what I'm saying, right? And even it sounds just like me, but man, the technology that they know is so intense. But think, like they said, they're keeping our minds weak, right? And they're keeping our lifespan short. They utilize these types of things, which I'm sure everyone here is aware of with EMFs and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
all of these little things are like, they come with huge downsides, especially
Yes.
with what's happening in the new generation of children. I think even my generation, who's always been plugged in,
Right.
your mind gets really weak. You're when you can't even like hold a real conversation with people. your emotions kind of become totally unstable. You become totally dependent on getting a like on your comments, you know, or whatever on your Facebook
Right.
posts, or else you're like angry for the rest of the day. Like, oh, they really do kind of keep us from maturing, I guess. Keep us from really seeing or breaking out of the box. I feel like
Right.
my generation is the generation that will never grow up.
Right.
You know, some people
Right.
made this joke that my generation, you know, we're like 30 right now. When we grow old and I'll finish when we get back.
Yeah. We'll pick it up on the other side. We'll be right back, everyone.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
When Justin and I found out we were having a little girl, we named her Eliana and started dreaming of what life would be like with her, where we would take her, what we would teach her, and of course, what we would read to her. One day we walked around a bookstore looking for books we might want for her and found nothing. So we started brainstorming what exactly we would want. Even from a young age, we wanted her to know and understand the heart of God and hidden truths that are in ancient biblical manuscripts like the Book of Enoch, and the idea of the Prophecy for Children series was born. Justin got hard to work and praise Yah released the Prophecy for Children series. We are grateful for the support and amazing feedback from others who have been wanting the same for their children. We just found out we will be having a son, and we are excited to grow our family and to keep writing books for our children to share with our truth-seeking family. To order these books today, please check out the children's store at sacredwordpublishing.com.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. I am your host, Zen Garcia. I'm joined this evening by my son, Justin James. We are continuing through we began tonight our introspection of the Illuminati Secret Covenant, and we are going chapter by chapter, verse by verse through first the Secret Covenant, and we'll be following up with the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. And so it will take us a good length of time, but there's so much information that is so valuable and important in these books and writings that it's well worth the introspection. And as you had mentioned earlier, this was something that Rob and I talked about doing as well. And so for us to be doing this in his honor as well, and to continue with the legacy that he and I started when going through the books of Enoch and Genesis and other narratives, I'm honored to be joined by you and to be able to do this with you, son. And it's a great blessing for me, as I know it is for the community as well. But let me turn it back over to you. You were talking about the dangers of technology.
Yeah, I was just mentioning my generation is. There's a joke, a meme that I saw the other day that when my generation gets old and we go into, retirement homes and what we call old folks' homes, that we would be the youngest old people because everyone would just be playing Nintendo 64s and doing all these dumb things that really just makes it obvious that we just never grew up, right? We never learned how to be adults. Like most of my generation doesn't know how to cook. We only know how to go to McDonald's,
Right.
We don't know how to take care of ourselves. All we really know how to do is go to the experts. To let them give us advice on everything. And really if you question the experts in any way, like it says here, you're an outcast and you're called crazy.
Right.
Oh, it really is so crazy. We have a lot of people in the chat talking about how their cell phones and stuff would
Right.
has like zapped them and like shut off on them when they get into like certain topics and stuff like that. I remember when I came to truth in 2007, I think I really no 2008. Sorry, I was studying 9/11, and I was writing about it to share what I had discovered with. Back then, it was MySpace, and I had been on MySpace since it had come out. I had a ton of friends, like all my friends from my school, and I went to like every school in my county, so I had just a ton of friends on Facebook. You don't really have to like keep up with everybody; just add them on Facebook or MySpace, and then they can see what you say. I was writing a lot back then, and a lot of blogs, and I had written this long article, and I remember I learned my lesson that day. It happened a couple times when I was like writing poetry about faith and stuff that all of a sudden my computer would just freeze out of nowhere and I'd have to refresh my page. But I had written this long write-up about 9/11 and all of a sudden, as soon as I tried to submit it, it all got lost. And I remember it happened.
Yeah.
I had to go to work right after that. And when I left, I drove a little moped back then. And I left, and there was this like all black car outside with black tinted windows, and I remember just feeling like I was about to get silenced. I went as fast as my little moped would go, and I was like, my heart was beating, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm just writing to like a little audience here on MySpace, and they really are taking me serious. I mean, it could have just been whoever, but in my mind, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
It's something that really does happen. People really do get silenced. That's a really unfortunate thing. But let's continue on with the reading, unless you wanted to comment.
No, other than yes, the technologies are dangerous and they can cause complications, especially the radiation the microwave signals, and cell phones. I certainly don't encourage people to use them up by your heads. Use speakers or headsets that have plugins, not the Bluetooth technology, because those are also dangerous. And you remember, Justin, I had a, a particular caregiver that spoke on the cell phone like 15 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from the time that she woke up to the time that she slept. And I warned her about it, and she didn't believe me. She ended up having a tumor the size of an egg on the side of her head, which had to be removed. And then I told her again and warned her, and she asked the doctors about it. They said there was no correlation. So she continued in the same behavior and created another one, and that one ended up taking her life. And she was 24 years old, had 3 kids. They were all young, and it is unfortunate, that people don't believe and don't heed your warning. But they have to learn for
I mean,
themselves.
you gotta just notice that there's some really strong effort to cover this stuff up.
Right.
Right? When all the experts are like saying one thing, but your experience and the testimonies of all the people around you says otherwise. And to me, it just makes it obvious that there's a concerted effort, that the quote-unquote best and brightest researchers out there are really just paid actors. Yeah, maybe they really are experts, maybe they really do know, but maybe the reason that they are the far superior experts is because they are part of Illuminati, part of this paid off order of Masons or whatever branch of organization they're in. But
the secret society.
Yeah. It says, we'll use our knowledge of science and technology in subtle ways so they'll never see what's happening. They're pretending to do the opposite with things like the hokey pokey for the last 2 years, when we have so many testimonies that, this snake bite was doing so much harm.
Mm-hmm.
But all the research keeps coming in that,
beneficial.
I can't say the name of it, but the horse dewormer was doing really well. But then it was like made illegal in some places. In other places, it was made it where you didn't even have to get a prescription for it. And those places ended up doing really well. In some places, like in this giant province in India, they made it like mandatory basically to treat everyone with that, and they ended up going to like zero cases. But in the Western empires, you can't argue with the official narrative because it's been established by science. The priests of science. That
priestcraft.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it says, we will use soft metals, aging accelerators, and sedatives in foods and water, also in the air. They will be blanketed by poisons everywhere they turn. That's so true, right? It seems like almost impossible to not get poisoned in the environment that we live in. I'm not saying...
Right.
Okay, I feel really, really blessed. Joy and I have went to some places when we, traveled to orphanages and places like that, they did not have access to clean water. But when I compare the water they were drinking and the lifestyle that they had been born into and adapted to, and then I look at the water that we're supposed to be drinking, I'm not sure which one is more poisonous.
Right.
I remember I walked into my environmental science class at a university in North Georgia, first day, and the teacher was talking about how there was an issue with men becoming too feminine due to women flushing their birth control.
Oh, wow.
And the point that she was making was that the birth control wasn't getting totally filtered out at the water treatment plants. It was getting back into the tap water, and men were getting whatever that was in the birth control and becoming more feminine. Really interesting that she brought that up. But it can't just be birth control,
Right.
How much pharmaceuticals is in the tap water?
Yeah.
How much
Right.
stuff is in the tap water? I don't know, but definitely encourage you, if you can, to get a water filter for sure.
Yeah.
Did you want to touch on
Yes.
this part?
Yeah, I think it's very important because water is the thing that we're supposed to be drinking the most of, and it has benefits as long as it is of good quality for the body that are unmeasurable. I mean, as far as flushing your food, helping you to digest, keeping your blood, thin to carry oxygen, and also to, just with your breathing, and I mean everything. Water has such a important role to play on all the facets of the different bodily systems. And those people that don't drink water, or uh, drink very limited amounts of water because, they can't get clean water, don't have access, like a 24-hour access to good water, it slowly deteriorates their bodies, and it causes complications with their bowels and even digesting food, um, and headaches and high blood pressure. All of those things can be attributed to just not getting enough water, and so I think it's very important to have a good system, which we use a rain soft system, both Justin and I, and it's a saltwater treatment. Um, and it's really affordable once you get the system put into place and, paid off. It's like pennies on the dollar, and is it tastes good, and it also removes the chlorine and a lot of the dangerous chemicals from even the water that is going to your plants. I mean, it filters all the water, but specifically, you have another thing to take out the fluoride in the kitchen, and which is for drinking water. But that's something to look into because the people that put Brita filters on their taps. Those things are not going to help you, and you're going to need to change them if you really want to affect your water in the way that it's supposed to be. You're going to have to change them so much and so often, and it would cost so much money to do that. Um, that those things are just not beneficial. Berkey filters, those are proven to be good, and but even those people don't change out the fluoride filters enough, in my opinion. And so, but yeah, water systems are very important. And, they are, as this document is talking about, they're going to be exposing us to poisons and toxins in in all aspects of the environment. And so it's important to recognize that as well.
I think something important that I myself still have to prepare for is the time that, if it does happen, that the public water supply just totally gets cut off.
Uh-huh.
Some people were talking in the chat. There are ways to make a home water filter system, right? I've seen it
Uh-huh.
with like big barrels, and you just put
Right.
like sand and, I think it's sand and a couple different things, and it filters all the stuff
Charcoal,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
make a hole at the bottom, put a little spigot on the bottom, and I don't know.
Right.
I need to do more studying on that, but encourage everyone to definitely check out that. There are also these things called life straws. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but they're little straws that filter out water, so you can literally like drink from a dirty puddle on the street, and it filters out all the
Awesome.
bad
No,
stuff. Yeah.
no.
But Somebody mentioned, TGS source mentioned the BPA in the plastic water bottles as well. I mean, there's just so many layers of poisons, right?
So much, right?
So much stuff. I mean, go to the gas station and try to find bubble gum that doesn't have aspartame in it, right?
Aspartame. There are no gums in the
There
United States.
is none. Yeah, there are none.
Right.
Yeah,
All of them have aspartame in them.
really crazy. And
Yep.
to
That's
think
why
all
I
of these
get
things,
gums from other countries. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all just kind of accepted by the FDA, right?
Right.
As long as they've been paid enough, they
Right.
they get pushed through. But all right, let's continue on. It says they'll be blanketed by poisons everywhere they turn. It's so true. I mean, from the water, the food, the air. Also nowadays we have to think about EMFs. You know, everywhere. Can't
Yes.
escape. So the soft metals will cause them to lose their minds. We'll promise to find a cure from our many fronts, yet we will feed them more poison. The poisons will be absorbed through their skin and mouths. They will destroy their minds and reproductive systems. From all this, their children will be born dead, and we will conceal this information. So, you know, like we said at the beginning, this could totally just be something that was written, like, to be made up, right? That was made by somebody like you and I. I just wrote this down, right? But it's real. It really is happening. The poisoning is really happening. The people losing their minds is really happening. And to me, the only thing that is questionable here is there really people that are out there trying to conceal this information? Yes. Is there really a concerted effort to do the poisoning? And I think it's obvious. You just have your eyes open, especially if you live with a Christian mindset. We live in a spiritual battle, and also in this world, it's a physical battle. This is warfare. Warfare, and really, you know, it says the soft metals will cause them to lose their minds. That's mostly what they want us to lose, right? They want us to lose our minds, lose our salvation, lose our cognitive abilities to make decisions, to be able to seek the light of the Messiah, to seek salvation through his blood on the cross, to seek the truth of his resurrection, seek the truth of his eternal kingdom. It says the poison will be hidden in everything that surrounds them, and what they drink, eat, breathe, and wear even. Wow. We must be ingenious in dispensing the poisons, for they can see far. We will teach them that the poisons are good, with fun images and musical tones. Man, that makes me think of all the Willy Wonka candies and stuff like that.
Yes.
As a kid, and I don't know, did you have those drinks that are called like Mondos? It was like little Kool-Aids, basically, in these little plastic bottles with a little twist off top. They were so fun to drink. They were so sweet. It was like a fake juice, but they were they're still super popular for kids, even like young kids. I think Joy said she saw someone at the store that was walking out with a cart full of sodas, and for their like 1-year-old baby, they had all of these Mondos or little Kool-Aid juicers or Capri Suns even. Those, you know, they all have such cool marketing. The pictures on them are so cool that Joy told me she saw somebody had made eggs the other day, and they put this blue food coloring in the eggs, and or mac and cheese, and they put blue food coloring, and they just thought it looked so cool, right? And they showed a picture of their kids, and the kid's mouth was blue, and they're like, you know, it's so much fun, it's so cool, but you know what that stuff is made out of? You know the stuff that's in those candies?
Yes.
You know, like how prevalent diabetes is in our generation?
Yes, right.
I mean, it's just... but honestly, like, part of me gets excited when I am checking out at Kroger and see the candy aisle still, you know? I don't get anything these days unless I don't know, maybe once a year if I want a Snickers bar. I give in sometimes, but, you know, this is like people's everyday diets. that they're eating,
Right.
and to them it's
And
crazy.
drinking all
It's
that
fun
Kool-Aid.
images and musical tones. They have those
Yeah.
awesome advertisements. I don't
Bright
know.
colors.
I mean, to me, whether or not this book was
Absolutely.
totally made up, it's spot on, isn't it?
Absolutely, without a doubt. And the other thing that we have not been able to talk about with reality of the conspiracy is the chemtrails and the toxins that are being sprayed above these large metropolitan areas, and how this is being done worldwide, and just what kind of expenses are being dedicated to keeping these programs ongoing year after year. How much chemicals does it take to spray a line 30 miles across out of a huge jet airliner? I mean, and what kind of chemicals are those, um, and why are they doing this before the rains come? Because it's usually associated with the storms, like right before a huge storm front is to come in, and the rain that would carry those chemicals from the air down to humans, and disperse them and evaporate them on sidewalks and streets, and vaporize them so that they're breathable and can get into the lungs of people, or even enter in through the skin. I mean, why are these things perpetuated? And who has the power and the money and the wealth to keep these systems in place and perpetuated? Those are things that, when it comes to conspiracy, that people really have to consider as well.
Yeah, really good point. Got to bring out something that Jeremiah said in the chat. They said, "This is why we bless or pray over our food before we eat." Absolutely. There's nothing that the Most High can't cure. That's absolutely true. Definitely pray over your food and ask for the Most High to bless it.
Yes.
All right, so
and your drink.
Yeah, everything you take in. And
yes, everything you take into your body.
Thankful for every breath, food,
right,
every meal. All right, so it says that those they look up to will help. We will enlist them to push our poisons. I don't know if it's a willing enlistment for everyone, but I mean, I definitely don't think it's a willing enlistment for everyone. I think that a lot of teachers out there, a lot of doctors and health advisors, that they all think that they're doing really well, right? They're following the science that's been fed to them. They're following their indoctrination, what they've been taught at the universities, and they think that they're doing well, right? But
yes,
anyone remember when cigarettes were recommended for pregnant women?
right.
The science has always got some dollar signs behind it.
Exactly.
Let's keep going. It says they will see our products being used in film and will grow accustomed to them and will never know their true effect. And that's so true with like cigarettes. The coolest
Hollywood
characters in all movies growing up always smoked cigarettes, right?
Right.
Always had chewing tobacco. Always drank alcohol. It's like, yeah, this is so true. I think what I see in watching Korean, like we love to watch Korean movies and dramas and stuff like that. I like it a little more, actually a lot more than American, because they aren't yet as far fallen away. The people aren't as indoctrinated to loving evil things, so it's not as gruesome or gross. Like up until like 10 years ago, holding hands was something that was like preserved for the finale. Nowadays they're getting grosser and grosser, but the thing that you see, you can see a progression in the decline of a society when you watch something like that. When I'm watching their film and their media and what they're being fed, because I've watched American stuff all my life, and you see it becomes progressively worse and worse, and these different things, these different ads, they're like put in there. And one thing that you see a lot now is abortion, divorce. You see a ton of, fornication. You see a ton of cigarette smokers. A ton of alcohol is pushed on our generation. And this is so true, that the products and the habits, the like spiritual declination of a society really can take place through the entertainment choices that we make.
Absolutely. We'll be right back in one final second.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
This book is one of those that comes from the discourse of the Ante-Nicene Church Fathers, and it was over, of course, what to include within the canon and what to authorize as the books that the church okay for public dissemination, and it was, of course, excluded. And yet, like the book of Acts, it covers much information between what was a representative of Satan, Simon the Magus, and Peter, as he went through his travels all throughout the land. And they kept coming and butting heads with one another, and Simon kept leading astray the people. And he had really actually a lot of good questions that helped in the dialogue of the text, and the information that is brought forth within this book can help people to understand not only the times and what the apostles were going through, but also it speaks about the fallen angels in great detail, the origins of evil, even the giants and how they came to be within the world, which is part of that whole theme of Genesis 6, the sons of God mating with the daughters of man, creating a race of giants, how they were here before and after the flood, which is one of those esoteric subjects that many of us have now begun to investigate in great detail. And so this, like the book of Enoch, speaks about that and covers it and shares the information about how these fallen angels are not gods, even though they are and have been celebrated by cultures and civilizations as holding this co-omnipotence with the Most High. But they are created angelic beings, and being cast out, they have always now become what we refer to as legion, and what Paul refers to as the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. And so there's great clarity brought out within the discourses of this book. It also speaks about and confirms that the devil is the father of the bad seed, serpent seed, the feminine Holy Spirit, and how she is part of the pre-existent triune Godhead, which the Israelites worship and which most people still don't understand. All of those things are brought forth in this manuscript as well. And so it will help to give you perspective on much that most people have never read about.
All right, welcome back everybody for final segment. The show is going by very quickly as per normal. Turn it back over to you, son.
Somebody made a good point in the chat. Mike S. pointed out antidepressants, and that is a really great example. It's something that's supposed to treat depression that has suicidal tendencies as a side effect. That's not an accident, in my opinion.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so I will.
And also, with the veterans as well, and how the VA, they only want to prescribe all of these drugs to the soldiers, and certainly that's not aiding and providing them what they really need to overcome what they're dealing with.
I went through the whole process for getting approved for PTSD, and meeting with all of the VA healthcare professionals and psychiatrists and everyone. And the only thing they do is prescribe you medicine, and every meeting that you have with your psychiatrist after your initial meeting is, are you taking your medicine? How is your medicine doing? Of course, every time I'm like, nah, trying to get on without medicine. Like, I do not want to get on that stuff. And that is not something that seems helpful at all. And definitely, I think that I'm not a health advisor, obviously. This isn't health advice, but I will not take those things.
Yeah, I'm glad for you that you've decided to do your own research and to make your own choices with regard to those things, because they can really mess people up.
Yeah, they do. Definitely do. It's not just our opinion. There's plenty of testimonies out there to hear from. All right, so let's move on. And it says, when they give birth, we will inject poisons into the blood of their children and convince them it's for their help. All right, we don't need to get silence for that one. Everyone has heard that before, right?
Right.
It's unfortunate. So I don't know if this is a real, book like that was written by some 33rd degree Mason or something, but this is something that happens. Let's move on. It says, we will start early on when their minds are young. We will target their children with what children love most, sweet things. When their teeth decay, we will fill them with metals that will kill their mind and steal their future. I think you and Lisa did a whole show about that, right? The amalgam fillings.
Right.
Crazy. Either this person really is was talking about this a long time ago, and they, were ahead of the curve when they really happened, or this person was just super woke, real woke, not left-wing woke. I'm talking about red-pilled, actually woke up, because that is definitely something that you will see. It does happen. This is reality that we're living in. When their ability to learn has been affected, we'll create medicine that will make them sicker and cause other diseases for which we will create yet more medicine. That is the whole circle of pharmakeia right there.
Yep.
And the whole thing about the ability to learn being affected, they make all these children super hyper and take away their ability to focus, and then they prescribe them more medicines. And it's a cycle, right? It's a cycle. Because once they get one medicine, it has a certain side effect, so they have to take another one. And it's Oh, it's so crazy. It's
And
so
this is
insane.
lifelong.
It really,
Yeah.
it really does. I mean, I don't remember what the statistic was, but on average, like every adult in America is on like a certain amount of medications every day.
Right.
You know, that's
Yes.
just customers, right? Customers.
Exactly. Lifelong. Yep.
Yeah. But you know, they give to the kids that have learning disabilities. They give them opium.
Uh huh.
Isn't that crazy? They literally give kids opium. I mean,
Yeah.
they like change it a little bit, but it's basically opium that they give them
Right.
opiates.
Yeah. And what seems to be like crank, methamphetamines, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff that college kids take to get high. Huh?
Yeah. And to stay awake. And yeah. And they did this even, to soldiers and pilots. When you go to war, they provide you with these kind of things as well. So,
Yeah,
but yeah.
sounds pretty crazy. They get them hooked
Yeah.
on them things when they're young. It
Right.
says we will render them docile and weak before us by our power. It like reminds me of an addict going to their dealer without any money. Like,
Yes.
please, like just I just
Right.
need my hit. I'll do
Yes.
anything. I'll do anything for it. Like
Right.
yeah. They will grow depressed, slow, and obese, and when they come to us for help, we will give them more poison. Wow, what a world we really do live in. Sorry, I keep
Right.
skipping around here. It says we will focus their attention towards money and material goods, so they may never connect with their inner self. It does seem like a focus, right? To just keep us focused on the external, so we never seek
Yes.
truth on
Distraction.
who we really are.
Amusements and entertainments is what the protocols talk about when we get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what's most important in our lives? Very important, because this is, we're all part of this war, right? We're just kind of reading about the enemy's agenda, how they operate, and we're being operated on. We're all part of this experiment in here. We've all been poisoned our whole lives. We're all,
Yes.
influenced to, there's so much in our lives to take our attention towards these things. So, really, as we read this, we should, I know I'm taking note of like, okay, can I check this off as something that I've overcome? Like, really, you can make like a checklist of
Right.
things to be aware of that we should pray against, pray over, and
Yes.
try to break free from, right?
Right.
Or we will distract.
Understanding the workings of the enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so important when you're in a war.
Yeah, very true. Absolutely, it's super, super important. It says
Yes.
we will distract them with fornication, external pleasures, and games, so they may never be one with the oneness of it all. That kind of exposes their whole Hindu ideology, the Talmudic
Right.
ideology, the great consciousness.
New Age, right?
Yeah, the New Age idea. It says their minds will belong to us, and they will do as we say. If they refuse, we shall find ways to implement mind-altering technology into their lives. So, definitely see a lot of stuff like that coming to play with the brain-machine interfaces, the BMIs, and what will eventually be the mark of the beast. It reminds me of that Divergent movie. You remember all the people got brain chips, and it was like at the flip of a switch, the controller could get these people to do whatever they wanted.
Whatever they wanted, exactly.
Yeah, it says we will use fear as our weapon. Who knew? Who knew that that's true, right? Who
Right.
sees? I guess that kind of goes along with our Revelation study from last week. Don't be cowardly. The people that will not make it into the kingdom, one of those prerequisites was cowardice.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You're following along too, right? I'm going to let you read
I am.
My voice is
Yes.
fading
Okay,
out.
sure. We will use fear as our weapon. We will establish their governments and establish opposites within. We will own both sides. We will always hide our objective, but carry out our plan. They will perform the labor for us, and we shall prosper from their toil. I mean, that short few sentences, it shows you the whole false left-right paradigm, the left and the right, the blue, the red, the Democrats and the Republicans. They always try to keep it to just two parties too, so that it's so easy to control. And here in America, they don't, any third party institution, the libertarians or anything, any other conservative parties or Green Party or whatever, those are kept on the outside and never get any kind of funding, never get any kind of a foothold, and so never become relevant. And they have it set up that way so that it's easy to control. And why Americans don't demand more diversified representation is absolutely bizarre, but that's the way it is. It shows the complacency of, as far as Americans and demanding more of their representatives. Not that it wouldn't be controlled anyways, because all that could easily be controlled as well. But um, it's so important to understand the controlled opposition and how they utilize that as tactic. All right, continuing. Our families will never mix with theirs. Our blood must be pure always, for it is the way. We will make them kill each other when it suits us. We will keep them separated from the oneness by dogma and religion. We will control all aspects of their lives and tell them what to think and how. We will guide them kindly and gently, letting them think they are guiding themselves. We will foment animosity between them through our factions. When a light shall shine among them, we shall extinguish it by ridicule or death, whichever suits us best. We will make them rip each other's hearts apart and kill their own children. We will accomplish this by using hate as our ally, anger as our friend. The hate will blind them totally, and never shall they see that from their conflicts we emerge as their rulers. Again, the whole thing of controlling from the top down, the chosen race, and the elect, and the even the word Illuminati, the enlightened ones, and all of these things they control through the secret societies, control, take over organizations if they need to from the top down. It's always that way. They never have to, like, even if a movement comes into play organically and something that is just created by the masses themselves, all they do is just wait for the leadership to emerge, and then they take control from top down. They have the money, the power, the wealth, the prestige to just assimilate and take it over, make it a part of the other 99% of wealth and control, and the industries that they own. Um, that's why the whole, as far as the money, it's a Ponzi scheme. They control, they print the money, they loan it to governments at interest. We're never going to equal their power in that regard. And even if people that like us uh, rise up in economic capacity and ability, still they print the money. That shows you how much power they have. And so you have to understand you're playing against a rigged game, and they are the ones that control all the means and the even the
Mm-hmm.
tools, the printing presses and all of that. So the
Recessions,
media,
depressions,
yeah,
inflation,
everything,
deflation, everything. Yeah.
right? Yeah, the Federal Reserve System, and they're right now tightening raising the interest rates and
Mm-hmm.
removing liquidity from the markets. That's part of the boom and bust system that they create, and so you're going to see a downturn, and you're going to see um, the markets suffer over the next months, and who knows how long it's going to be until they decide to inject more capital, the quantitative easing as they call it. But
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring forth, that was a good point. Reading, kind of like being in tune with some of their strategies will definitely help you lose less, right? But
oh yeah, absolutely,
it says we will make them kill each other when it suits us, and that is so true.
right,
With the wars between different peoples is just innocent people that have been brainwashed into thinking that some other innocent people are extremely evil. I'm not saying that every war fighter is innocent. I'm saying that a lot of times, like in the Korean War, you had brothers fighting each other
yeah,
in the North and the
families, yeah,
South, and in the
separated
Civil
by a
War.
line,
In the Civil
right,
War here, there were people in the North that were related to the people in the South that were like lined
right,
up and were shooting at each other, and
yeah,
it's not like they had any option, like they had to, because they were men and they couldn't run. They called them deserters, right? If you didn't
right,
submit your life to fight for the nation, you were a deserter, and they literally killed deserters.
right,
But it's really so sad to think about war.
right,
I am
right,
definitely what they call a conscientious objector now. I
hmm,
don't really support the wars, but
right,
the people who are in power, they're in power because the Most High lets them be. So nothing
yeah,
operates outside of His ultimate control. Of course, this is
right,
a kingdom that is temporarily controlled by the enemy, but it's not totally out of the control of the Most High. So prayer has a lot of impact. So stay prayed up.
yeah.
But I wanted to
And
point this part out. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna also say that knowledge, like
Mm-hmm.
the us sharing this information here, if we can help you, the people out there, to understand the controlled opposition and that the left and the right is all a phony paradigm, hopefully we can keep you out of getting involved in picking one or the two sides, thinking that one is better than the other when both are controlled by evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good point. And here it says, we will keep them separated from the oneness by dogma and religion. And, I've always thought this. I don't know how many people here know, but I grew up basically as an atheist, a very hateful person that was very, very anti-Christian and anti-religion, but I did study as many religions as I could. I studied as much history as I could to find what the truth was, and I did eventually find that the Bible, in my opinion, is the key to unlocking the mystery of history and how all of the histories of different religions and cultures all fit together to paint a big picture of truth. And Christ is that central figure of truth. His life, his death, his resurrection, the fact that he did control everything, that we do have a great purpose, and that love is our purpose. And that, to me, it's not contained in a religion. That's just truth, and since I came to that truth, I still never found my home in a church. I've been to dozens of churches, I never felt spiritually like I belonged in a specific church, you know? Every institution, this is just me thinking out loud here, every institution can be infiltrated, and I think they all have been. You know, it says here, we will keep them separated from oneness by dogma and religion. Like, they are the ones in control of this, right? Religion.
Right.
I think that for the most part, that's very accurate. They control the different religions, and at the top, you know, you have the white pope and then the black pope. You know, you have all of these evil institutions that
factions.
Yeah, that seem like they're good, right? So people follow them, but they all have a very wicked agenda, and it seems to tie in with this, the whole Illuminati Covenant or New World Order. Yeah, let's continue on.
All right. They will be busy killing each other. They will bathe in their own blood and kill their neighbors for as long as we see fit. We will benefit greatly from this, for they will not see us, for they cannot see us. We will continue to prosper from their wars and their deaths. We shall repeat this over and over until our ultimate goal is accomplished. We will continue to make them live in fear and anger through images and sounds. We will use all the tools we have to accomplish this. The tools will be provided by their labor. We will make them hate themselves and their neighbors. We will always hide the divine truth from them, that we are all one. This they must never know. They must never know that color is an illusion. They must always think they are not equal. Drop by drop, we will advance our goal. We will take over their land, resources, and wealth to exercise total control over them. We will deceive them into accepting laws that will steal the little freedom they will have. We will establish a money system that will imprison them forever, keeping them and their children in debt. I want to make a comment about the whole theme of, wars, and how it is that in this country we have glorified patriotism and glorified the whole system of parents sending their children off to join the wars, no matter what the ideology, what the cause, what the reason behind, the invasion of this country or that, are reasons for attacking another nation, in the whole theme of 9/11 and the war on terrorism, how everybody believed that, the 19 fanatical Muslims, part of some extremist cult controlled by Osama bin Laden, coordinated attacks against the United States, and with box cutters were able to hijack 3 airliners and then have these Muslim hijackers fly these incredibly intricate, jet airliners into different buildings in the United States of America,
and their passports
while
survived.
the military stood down. Yeah, and the passport of Muhammad Atta somehow just survived the explosion and landed conveniently on the sidewalk where the FBI found it. I mean, what a miracle.
It's really sad. I don't mean to laugh and belittle the situation. It is terrible.
Lunacy.
But it's just marketing.
It really is.
It's marketing for them, you know? I still, it's like ingrained in me when I hear the national anthem, when you see everyone like stand up and salute the flag. It's like, because I was in the military for 6 years and I did the honor guard, so we like literally saluted flags as we handed them to the next of kin after their dad or spouse had died.
Right.
it like inside my body, I still get like this. It still like makes me want to tear up and like cry. You know, that like
Oh, yeah,
feeling
me too.
of pride and
Pride,
patriotism and
yes.
honor. But it's
Right.
such a lie.
Right,
You're
right.
not fighting for the
Yeah.
freedom of your family. You're fighting banker wars.
Right.
You're fighting for the
Yeah,
pharmaceutical companies.
yeah, the industrialists, the fascism that controls our country. I mean, it's now legal. The Supreme Court made it legal for lobbyists to pay off our representatives. I mean, it doesn't get more fascist than that. Oh my gosh, we're at the end. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll pick it up next week. God bless. Love you, son.
Night.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.